Over 9 weeks, we've laughed and cried. We've celebrated and lamented aspects of our country. We shifted the traditional election focus onto you, the electorate. Well, tonight we look at the road ahead and we celebrate South African excellence. Let's get started. Well, good evening and welcome to the final episode of the Democracy Gate here on SABC3. I'm Bongani Bingwa. And marking 25 years of South Africa's democracy, SABC News produced this show to highlight the successes, failures and challenges facing the country. This show puts you, the citizen, front and center of the story, allowing you to tell it in your voice and language. And so tonight we reflect on what it means to be South African. We celebrate South African excellence and praise the spirit of many of our people who rise above their challenges. We salute this excellence in people like David Masilela, who from a petrol attendant became the owner of a law firm. Lukhanyo Mekuto, a child of a domestic worker and gardener, now a bioprocess engineering doctor. Mandi Samfeka, the first black South African female fighter pilot for the Air Force, and veteran physics, maths and chemistry teacher William Smith, of course, recently awarded with a national order. There's a fire within South Africans to succeed and to rise above adversity, and today we salute such individuals. Well, we're joined tonight from our Durban studios by Professor Ngoza Dlova, internationally renowned dermatologist and the Dean of Clinical Medicine at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Professor Dlova recently earned worldwide praise after she helped discover a new gene that's the cause of permanent hair loss amongst black women. Our second guest is in our Cape Town studio, Kujo Nwasheng from the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory. He manages the team responsible for part of the Meerkat Radio Telescope that ingests data and delivers it to the science community. And so they join me now. Congratulations to you both for the incredible work that you are doing. I'll start with you, Professor Dlova. I mean, it's one thing to be a scientist, but particularly, of course, to do the work that you are doing that really puts a spotlight on a problem that until people like you came along had not been really given much attention.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Bongan. Yeah, well, it's been a journey, and but a journey that was worth traveling, because at the end we were able to identify the mutated gene in one of the most common causes of hair loss in Africans.
I mean, talk to me about the practical application of the science that you champion. You know, the idea that a little girl could be watching us right now dreaming to be a scientist, but not just for the fancy title, but to be able to have a real impact on the community and indeed the country and world at large.
Yeah, I think it's important to be inquisitive and to be passionate also about what you're doing, because without the passion, you are unable to traverse or deal with the challenges that you may encounter on your way. So the curiosity also is an important element of discoveries. And also, if you keep asking yourself, how can I improve this? What can I do to find a solution to this? How can I do it better? And then reading and traveling and meeting other like-minded people who may just drop a penny, and then you start thinking and deliberating, but not giving up on what you think is a clue to something that you're suspecting, especially in clinical medicine.
All right, let me bring you into conversation, Kuzo Nwasheng. I mean, science it doesn't always have, the reputation of being cool amongst kids, and yet you are at the forefront of really telling us not only about our world, but indeed things we are yet to discover about our universe. How do we make the kind of work you do attractive to youth?
Well, the beauty of science is that it's in our lives every day. So the best way to do this is to explain science in ways that people use it in every day, whether they cook, whether they use their pen to write, and how that relates to the big discoveries being made across the the whole science community.
So what drives you to succeed? Because, I mean, the work you are doing, the work that you are leading, has, in a sense, put South Africa on the map.
Well, what drives me to succeed is the alternative. What happens if I fail? Which is unthinkable. South Africa being part of dark Africa, South Africa being the little train that said it could and didn't. All those, when you compare them to the upside, are far worse than what you can achieve if you succeed very well. So that's what drives me. In 100 years' time, what is the narrative people will have about South Africa? What will this planet, or if we find extraterrestrial civilizations, what they will say about us? That's what drives me to succeed.
So explain to me the importance of the Meerkat project, its significance in terms of what South African science can contribute to the world.
Well, the Meerkat telescope itself was built as a predecessor to the Square Kilometre Array project, which will be the largest radio astronomy telescope the world will see, well, probably in the next century. And what it enabled us to do is to prove to the world that we can build this innovative instrument, which right now is arguably the best radio astronomy telescope in the world, and also generate world-leading science using this telescope. Science that will study, well, the data products are being transferred across the whole planet to the best science teams in the world to study the science.
Professor Dloza, let me bring you back into the conversation. We're talking science, we're talking medicine. These are things that are not traditionally seen as areas in which, black people and women in particular have excelled in. But you've changed that script, haven't you?
Well, I believe so, I'm told. So I think it's important to be focused and be able to initiate projects and persist, until you get what you want, and not be derailed by any challenges that you may come across. And those challenges, if they come, it's okay. They're teaching you a lesson. But when you're focused, then you know that this is where I want to get, and I will get there, no matter what happens. I think also for me, I like to see positive growth and progress in whatever I do, whether it's the environment or the people that I work with. It gives me a great sense of pleasure to see other people excelling, and also if we were to talk about mentorship and role modeling, creating or developing younger people who will be better than us and achieve much more than we have achieved. So it gives me a sense of fulfillment.
All right, we'll stay with both of you and we'll continue our conversation after this quick break. My two guests this evening, Kuzo Nwasheng and Professor Dloza Dloza, talking about excellence in the world of science and medicine. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Nana, and I want to tell you a bit about Economics Unbound. It is a live studio current affairs program that brings an understanding of the economy, how it operates, and how it is managed. The show seeks to include ordinary South Africans in purposeful and well-informed discussions about the economy.
The whole corruption and having to pay people to get businesses, it's like killing our businesses.
While providing them with enough information to make better economic and financial decisions.
And we need to start thinking of new ways of creating new structures that are relevant at the time.
Through this program, audiences can look forward to 30 minutes of deep and tough questioning on the issues of the week.
Why do you think that our economy lends itself to such collusive behavior and such concentration of monopolies in key sectors?
The Drakensberg is the name given to the eastern portion of Great Escarpments, which encloses the central Southern Africa plateau. The name means Drakensberge in Afrikaans and is called Ukahlamba in isiZulu, which means barrier of spears. The Drakensberg escarpment stretches for over 1,000 kilometers from Eastern Cape, then forms the border between Lesotho and the Eastern Cape, and the border between Lesotho and KwaZulu-Natal. It then forms the border between KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State, and next as the border between KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. It winds north through Mpumalanga, where it includes features such as Blade River Canyon, Three Rendezvous, and God's Window. The Drakensberg is the highest mountain range in the country, reaching 3,482 meters above sea level.
Welcome back. You're watching the Democracy Gauge. We're celebrating South African successes, and we've got two phenomenal guests on the show. Professor Noza Dlova, an internationally renowned dermatologist. We're also, of course, joined by a leading scientist from around the world, and that's, of course, Khutso Ngwasheng. Welcome back, both of you, to the program. I mean, one of the things that's been a big focus, Khutso, I'll start with you. In the last 25 years, we've been told that our education system is lagging behind. Our grade 4 learners, for example, failed in terms of numeracy and literacy and comprehension. How do we ensure that our education system delivers more people like yourself, that, in a sense, you multiply?
The first thing that needs to be addressed is the narratives of the work that we do at spaces like the Sereo, so that the South African child knows that this is possible in their backyard. The second thing, the most important, is the ability to narrate these things that you're trying to teach in languages and in the context that it is easily understood by the peoples that who are the target for their education. And thirdly is about their attitudes. Quite frankly, attitudes like maths is difficult, science is for nerds, are not quite helping. They, like I said earlier, these are everyday things that we use and practice, and the idea is just elaborate on that, illustrate that, and show that science in general, mathematics in general, belong to us as part of humanity, and we are stakeholders ultimately.
All right, I don't think Prof can hear me. Let's go back to you, Mr. Ngwasheng. And I'll pose that same question to you. We've got popular culture that celebrates, consumerism, that celebrates, the slay queens of this world. Education has not become the cool thing to pursue. We want an easy path to success. Does that suggest to you we've taken a step backward?
And that's a truly difficult question for me, because personally I think that social media has created ample opportunity for young people to realize that they're part of a global economy, a socio-economy for that matter. We got Kim Kardashian, the queen of slaying, becoming a lawyer, I read last week. And you see people in shows, blockbuster shows like The Big Bang Theory, shows that are breaking world records now, star several scientists in them in terms of Marvel's Avengers. So, it's all about perspective in my view. It's all about what you want to emphasize. I think we need to allow this generation to express itself the way it wants to be heard and accept that.
What advice and motivation do you then have for young people who look at what you're doing, who start perhaps to dream about possibilities for their own future?
I would say dream big, dream far, and dream long. Don't think about the next 25 years of your life. Don't think about the next 30. Think about your children's children. The work that you do has to have that kind of impact. You gotta believe in something greater than yourself. Otherwise, you got the affinity of retirement, and that always narrows the dream. You need to think bigger than that. And when you do that also, obstacles that are in front of you, lack of money, lack of opportunities, the distance between where you need to be and where you are, suddenly become smaller because they matter that much less. The big view sometimes is what gets you across the difficult times.
Kutsong Washeng, thank you very much for your contribution on the program this evening. I think we've lost Professor Dloza there. We'll have to leave it there with her. All right, you're watching The Democracy Gauge. We'll be taking more of your thoughts coming up after this quick break. This is our final episode.
SABC News is producing more than 150 election-related programs ahead of the May 8th election. If you think our content is not in line with our editorial policy, direct your complaints in writing to complaints@sabc.co.za. Complaints on election-related broadcast content should also be lodged with ICASA's Complaints and Compliance Committee by sending an email to bmashiku@icasa.org.za or call 012-568-3233.
Solani Mkiva says that they believe that the king should be released and that they are not being opportunistic.
The last 4 years, we have been engaging with government. It cannot be a post-colonial government that begins to jail a king in a context of what actually happened.
Bobby Solomons, he's the spokesperson of the Alex Shutdown Committee, the multi-billion rand Alexander Renewal Project. Nothing came of that.
Community wants to know what really happened to the money.
The creative director of the label, Mansu, that of course means black is beautiful in Sesotho. What has been your experience in that regard, given some of the more established labels that you have managed to work with?
It is hard. 15 years is a long time. There's a lot of sacrifice for your family to make for you.
This is the thing.
Wearing without the breeze.
This is it this morning.
Welcome back. Now, the People's View allows you to interact with us and share your views. It's your opportunity to speak directly to the show. So let's see what some of you have to say.
In general, in South Africa and in particular, means that you are growing up living in a country which has got a rich economic resources, a country that had its freedom fought for by the likes of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, may his soul rest in peace. And now what differentiates us from the rest of the world is that the diversity of our culture and the language is spoken.
South African kulesikhathi samanje kusho ukuthi umuntu okhululekile okwazi ukuziexpressa ngendlela emgqilisayo kanti futhi owaziyo futhi namalungelo akhe owasebenzisa ngendlela futhi efanele.
South Africa is very different to other countries because we are a well-organized country, politically wise, economically wise. All the things that we need in the country, I think we are on top of everything. We are on par. That is why in our country, I think we are just different to other countries in Africa. But my biggest worry now is the crime rate. The crime is getting out of hands. I wish we can deal with it. Thank you.
All right, through the Democracy Gauge, we've traveled the length and breadth of South Africa, getting stories from ordinary folks and their reflections on the last 25 years of democracy. There they are on our website, SABC News. And of course, you can check out all the stories. If you click on any of these icons, you'll get to play any of those stories and watch them. It's been stories of influence, stories of inspirations, stories that have really been about the heart of the emotional and I would say spiritual journey so many of us have been on these last 25 years.
To be a South African today, I'm ashamed. It was far better before. But the new government, holy karamoly.
Tukuluho ya rona kapa puso ya rona ya bongata ha ona mo yang teng ka sena sebaka hobane di baetapele ba rona bana nnete ba rata fela batho kana go tsa dile ka dikgetho.
Uhulumeni lo wethu lona uzamile ukuthi ufuna ukuthi thina lesingafundanga thina singasebenzi sibe nayo indlela yokuziphilisa.
The majority of our people fell into crime, gangsterism, drug abuse, and that we feel that is thing that this government should have long time dealt with.
Ek is geel, want dit is die kleur in die verkeerslig wat vir jou sê wees versigtig. Demokrasie is 'n wonderlike stelsel, maar as hy verkeerd toegepas word, is dit 'n baie gevaarlike stelsel. Dan is dit so gevaarlik soos 'n goeie grondwet wat nie geïmplementeer word nie.
Right, it is our final show. So today we're going to meet a husband and wife team. 58-year-old Professor Salim Abdul Karim is the director of the Center for the AIDS Program of Research in Durban, and Professor Quarisha Abdul Karim is the Associate Scientific Director at CAPRISA and the United Nations AIDS Ambassador for Adolescents and HIV. Here's their unique story.
I'm Salim Abdul Karim. I am the director of the Center for the AIDS Program of Research in South Africa, known as CAPRISA, and Pro-Vice Chancellor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Professor in Global Health at Columbia University in New York, and I'm 58 years old. It was in 1982 that we heard about the first cases of HIV in South Africa. Until then, we had no real idea about what this disease was and whether it was going to affect our country. I was a young doctor at the time, never seen a case. But it was within a year, I think it was late 1983 or early 84, that I saw the first case, my first case of HIV infection. And we sort of interpreted what we were seeing in the world as far as HIV was concerned as this was a potential threat against South Africa and Africa more broadly. Well, I can tell you now with hindsight that that was a total underestimate, because it was catastrophic in its impact in Africa. Essentially, the rallying cry was around access to treatment. Now we have access to treatment, it's free. So it's much more difficult to have a rallying cry for prevention, because now you know people don't have HIV, rallying for something they don't have. It's a very different situation when you have a disease and you know you're going to die and you're asking people to save you. So the narrative has changed, the context has changed, and the driving force for the new narrative is difficult. So that's why it's a very complicated set of reasons.
Hi, I'm Quarisha Abdul Karim, Associate Scientific Director at CAPRISA, the Center for the AIDS Program of Research in South Africa. In the 25 years of democracy, the one success that we've had, which is in our response to the HIV epidemic. So despite that up and down, and in fact, it took that Mbeki denialist period for one global solidarity, which is around the AIDS 2000 meeting, and having that conference here was pivotal. But the second was that this was the pivotal point and catalyst for social movement to be created, like the Treatment Action Campaign.
I firmly believe that our democracy is strong because we have the institutions that protect us, whether it's the universities, or whether we're talking about the appointment of our new national prosecutor, whether we're talking about the new president, whether we're talking about the changes in the Hawks, but the judiciary, all of these institutions give me hope that South Africa's democracy is as strong as ever.
I think the state of our democracy is a caution, Amber. And the reason I think that is I think we have a lot of positives to celebrate, but there are also many, many challenges.
I think that's hope we certainly all would like to share. Now, before we say goodbye, a quick reminder that next week, Monday to Friday, I'll still be on this slot, although with a different program, a special Elections Week show, bringing you the build-up to Election Day, all of Voting Day updates, and of course, up-to-the-minute results. So I'm looking forward to your company. Join me next week. But from me, Bongani Bingwa, and the entire Democracy Gauge team, we thank you for watching. We certainly thank you for participating in our program. That's a wrap from us. Until the next time, ubusuku benzolo. Good night.